Hi everyone, first off, thanks very much for all the birthday wishes yesterday. It was really nice to read all of those comments coming through on the video, so cheers for that, had a nice day. And also special thanks and big shout out to ProtoWord and Exercise Gammon, really appreciate that support, so thank you very much. Now onto this game here, the man of the moment right now is Gukesh. Now, he played Fabiano Caruana yesterday. I'm guessing you've seen that game and know the results. But if you haven't, I'll link at the end of the video to a brilliant one done by GM Danny King, who does the Power Play Chess channel. I know there's other good videos out there too, like Agadmator, etc. But I'll link to his, I especially love his stuff. So if you missed that one, want to catch it up, I'll link it at the end. But today I'm looking at what happened in his game here with Shakhriyar and Mamedyarov with the black pieces. So another very stern test. How would he fare today? So he kicks off here with pawn to d4, Shak goes d5, c4 and takes on c4. So the queen's gambit accepted. Now we had e4 there. This is one of the most fighting moves. You take the center and Shak fights back with pawn e5. So immediately striking at these pawns here, and you don't want to be chopping this one off, then the queens come off. Black will eventually win back the pawn and then be doing okay, better game. So we had knight f3 instead, supports the center. Now bishop b4 check was flicked in, bishop d2, an exchange here, queen recaptures, pawn takes here, and Shak's actually getting the queens off the board in this variation here. So great respect for his younger opponent already. You know, he's not trying to mix up some crazy opening line of, I don't know, the Grunfeld or the King's Indian, etc. Real respect for the young man. So pawn a6 played. Stops knight to b5, hitting the c7 pawn. Now the bishop recaptured. This knight developed to e7, sits very well there, very flexible, doesn't run into e5, which it would do on f6, and it also supports this knight coming to c6 later on. Now we had knight c3, pawn b5, and here Shak gains some nice queenside space. So kicks this one, it now hops back and hits the pawn, so the pawn carries on. Now the knight comes back, but okay, you've set up the nice chain. In some endgames, black will look to get these 3-on-2 going, try and create a passed pawn. Equally, white will try and get the 4-on-3 going on the king side here. This is one of the small imbalances in the position. Now this knight developed to c6, and we had castles queenside from Gukesh. I covered a game where he won a beautiful castles queenside game as well, so he's never afraid to do that one, as we can see. They love to fight, these guys, although it's still tough in this position to prove any kind of real advantage for either side here. And I like Shak's next move. If you go bishop to b7, well, the problem is you could clear the d file now, I mean maybe by capturing or even dropping back knight to c2, and you've now opened up the rook, and say you try and castle the king, well now we can invade, just a bit uncomfortable, and you can't castle queenside because we're cutting the file. So instead Shak plays in this position here, bishop to d7, not the natural looking b7 square, because now after knight takes here, knight recaptures, although the d file is open for the white rook, well now we get rook d6 and castles queenside, and Shak's just in time to connect his rooks, challenge that only open file on the board. So the rook's doubled, the king nudged up to c7, pawn f4 from Gukesh, good move, gets those central pawns rolling. Now bishop to e6, and this is the challenge though, there's a lot of material now coming off the board, so after pawn e5, captures, now the rook recaptures. If you go with the pawn, that one could become weak actually soon, rather than be an asset as a passed pawn. So rook takes, rook d8, these ones now came off, and Gukesh starts marching his king up, brings it into d2. And now this next move is quite nice by Shak. It's not forced, you don't have to change the pawn structure, but he maybe didn't like the look of knight e4 coming into d6. So he goes pawn f6 here to break up those pawns, and there's pressure on it from the knight, of course, that kind of thing. So here we had captures on f6, the pawn recaptured, and yes, it split those pawns for Shak here, but after king to e3, pawn f5, it does do a good job of controlling these knight hops, and black's got enough pieces around those pawns to make sure they're protected, plus they could get something going here if white wanders too far trying to pick them up. So bishop f3 now played, hits the knight, king c7, and now the knight comes back to e2, it's rerouting to d4, and knight e7 from Shak, a nice remaneuver of his own. So he's looking to check here potentially, then attack this pawn. Pawn h3 played, preparing g4, king d6, and now g4 captures here, pawn recaptures, and bishop d5 prepares to exchange this powerful piece here. We had a takes on d5, knight recaptures with check, king d4, the knight hopped into b4 now, hits this pawn, also looking to come here, so the knight covered like this, knight d3, attacked this pawn, and it also hits this one, and so white has to make a decision. And this is where Gukesh played pawn b3. So he allows Shak to take here, because then he goes knight e4 check, king c6, and actually here the players agreed a draw, because next move for white is takes, pawn recaptures, king takes, and you've simply got the two pawns, the two knights, nothing to be done, game is a draw. So I'm sorry there's no fireworks today in this game, but I did want to show you what happened in this historic 9th game, a historic tournament for Gukesh. If you want to see an amazing game he played yesterday against Fabiano Caruana, then do check out this video here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon.